what are you good at? Like that is an early conversation, because I know people that run coaching businesses that aren't good at coaching, and that's totally okay,
Yeah.
right? So like that's where I think like, all right, your next like hard question when you're starting a business is, what are you good at? And then you need to sort that out, because there's somewhere between what your market is interested in and what you want to do. The overlap of those two circles in the Venn diagram is a long-term successful business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to your point, the people that are good at running businesses, they're probably in some sort of business management or business administration, right? And that's not going to be a niche that starts a new business that's going to produce a lot of revenue. Like if you think of some of the most valuable companies in the world, like Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, like the people that started these, like, yes, they started businesses and they were kind of the talent behind that business. They were the visionary, but they also had some idea of how to run a business. But then they built an infrastructure around them to run the business so that they can continue on with being the idea generator of that business, right? Like Elon Musk is insane. He's going to Mars and all this shit. But he's probably not the one doing the accounting in his business, right? There's probably a team of probably thousands of people that do that shit. So like understanding, like you said, what you're good at and finding people to fill the gaps in the things that you're not good at. Because if you're, if you have this niche idea in, especially the fitness industry is so different than running a business, like what you need to be good at, that kind of core competency of skills is so different than running a business. Fucking find someone to run the business. Like there's no shame in like having someone do that so that you can do the thing that you're good at. And that comes down to like that time, money, energy thing. Like use the money to put someone in that position so you can take your time and your energy to do the thing that you're best at in that business. And that's what's going to grow your business, is having the right people in the right places. And that kind of leads to what my next point is that if you're going to start a business, and this is another way that I see online coaches or fitness professionals start a business and then just kind of fizzles out. You need to fucking commit to it. You need to be 100% in on it. You can't be that in-person trainer that has a few online clients and, I'm trying to scale my business and I do an Instagram video like 3 times a week and one YouTube video. And like, that's not it. That's not it. Like if you don't have 100% of your effort into the thing that you're trying to grow, it's not going to grow. Right. And you and I, like, we've done everything. We've done fucking everything over the last decade in this business. But for me, at least, I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for you, but I've seen it in you. It's like the guiding light to all of this is I'm doing this to grow this thing that's greater than me. Right. It's always been Prescript is the thing that I want to grow. And then everything that I do will contribute to feeding into that and, growing my knowledge, understanding the business better, understanding, exercise, physiology, biology, biomechanics, like whatever there is to understand. Like and this, I don't know, this is a little bit of an aside, but like I see people starting these businesses and like, they have an understanding, like they have their experience, and then they'll just swerve way outside of their lane, thinking that they need to be something different than that to be, a successful business. And one of the people that I think of all the fucking time when it comes to
Where are you going with this, dog? You dropped the name?
yeah, this is a good one though. This is positive.
Oh,
I
okay,
think
okay.
Eric Bagheera, man. Like he
Bagheera,
was
the
one of
boogie
the
man.
first, one of the first people that like I saw come out and be like, no, I just do general population training, and like double down to that being his specialty. And I'm like, that's fucking genius. Like you're so fucking smart. You don't need this like huge, like I'm different moment. It's like the thing that's different about him is that he'll fucking take anyone. He'll take the hump of the bell curve, which is everyone that wants to get more fit or in better shape or lose weight or a little bit stronger, and he'll get them closer to that goal. And I thought that was fucking genius. Like, that's it. Like, do the thing that you're good at and don't try and be anything else, and fucking commit to that thing. Like, oh, man, so that's like, yeah, big round of applause for Eric Bagheera. But that's like kind of, in a way where you and I existed in this space as we came out of school, as we started this business, is like we saw this huge gap. Like rehabs over here, and people suck at that. Like strength training's over here. Like people get it on like the furthest extent, but like what about that closer extent of like bridging the gap towards performance? And like that was, as we started our practice, that was kind of the birth of this business. Was we saw these people that were in that middle somewhere. They're not necessarily rehab clients. They're not necessarily like excelling in strength and conditioning. And like that was our hump of the bell curve. We're like, we can help these people. And these are the people that are drawn to us. And we have acquired this skill set where we have these conversations at a very high frequency. So let's just start spreading this information. And that's like you, a year before we started this business, I don't think I would have believed you if you told me we were going to start this business. And like it started as, like you said, something very different than what it is now. But the way that it evolved was kind of us listening to the market, seeing what we were competent at, and seeing why people were coming to us, and then being able to respond in a way that we're like, oh yeah, like we're good at this. And then it's funny, man. This must have been somewhere around like 2018 ish. I remember this was like when you were on the road and like you came back and we were at sundown. We were like doing something like a photo shoot or something like that. And you're like, yo, dude, do you realize we're the best in the world at what we do? And like and like I didn't have the same perspective as you at the time because you'd fucking been around the world. And I'm like, yo, that's crazy. And I started like really looking at the people that, I kind of regarded in the space and like the level that they were doing things at. And I'm like, yo, this dude's fucking onto something. Like, we're pretty fucking good at this. Like, there's a reason I think everyone's retarded. And that's because like that's because I can see through the bullshit because both of us came into this with a doctorate degree. And that's something that, there are people in this space, but they kind of use that as like a false call to authority because it's like some sort of doctorate in like niche research or like some sort of something that's like tangential to like actually being meaningful in terms of education in the fitness industry. And then you and I, like, we were fucking in the heart of it. Like, yeah, chiropractic degree, like, it is what it is. But the one thing it does teach you is fucking anatomy. It teaches you biomechanics, and it teaches you like the physiology and like to some extent the neurology around that. And it's like, all right, this is this stuff that we just, spent $250,000 each learning about. And we have this wealth of knowledge. It doesn't, to be honest, it didn't really carry over into chiropractic care the way I thought it would. I found a really strong connection with the information I was learning and exercising, like improving my performance at the time. So it was like a pretty cool moment to like think of it in that way, that like you kind of like pulled the curtain back and you're like, no, like these dudes don't know what they're doing. Like we're pretty fucking good at this. And then like kind of tying it back to my original point is like we fucking committed to what we were good at, what we knew, and then we build the business to model after that and to be the best delivery of that product.
Yeah, I think there's two things that I think we did early that I advise that are business adjacent and they have a lot of benefits. The first is compete.
Yeah.
I think competition is something that is hard to find. And like I see it, the high rocks trend is an easy example, but I think there's a lot of validity for a business owner to like, because I think one thing that you and I have that probably doesn't come across is we're violently competitive.
Oh.
I think that's something that we don't speak about outside of absolutely insane group text messages with me, you, and Penny. But like we are unhinged competitive. Like if it like what winning means to me, you, and Matt cannot be adequately put into words. It can only be expressed through what we do in the business on the day-to-day basis. It's like you wouldn't do what we do unless you were absolutely infatuated with winning. And I think competing helps build that, channel that. Like, I didn't think twice about powerlifting. Like when I first started competing in powerlifting, it was like, okay, like I played like real sports respectfully. So what I do, I just got to, I put on this funny looking thing and I go up there and I lift weights, and it's not, everyone wears it. So it's not that funny. I was like, all right, okay, I'll go do it. I know people who are like afraid to compete at a powerlifting meet. Like, oh, I don't want to compete. Dude, don't run a business. Lose whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
Whatever you look, you don't matter and nobody cares. So that's a great starting point for a business. So I think competition, you were like, dude, you were in it with CrossFit. Like you're at Wadapalooza, you're doing West Coast regionals. Like you were about that life, but I was flying overseas to compete. I was lifting at the Arnold's in the cage. Like it was that, and twofold. The second benefit of that is that creates that that personality trait that people know that they don't have, embodies and emboldens the business with that. So you kind of get this double-edged sword of like, okay, it's going to, if you're competing in something fitness related, obviously if you're in the fitness industry, that's going to give you an air of authority, an air of experience, and then also actual real experience, right? It's not just window dressing. Like it's things that you can draw on and to be relatable to a broader audience. And it also makes what you're doing somewhat aspirational because people like the idea of competing, but some people kind of get in their own way. So that's like thing number one that I think is, it's not essential, it's not necessary, but I mean, we had Charlie Weingroff on the show the other day. I had a cool full circle moment at Major League Baseball winter meetings a month or so back where I was presenting to all the strength coaches in Major League Baseball. And I got to present to Eric Cressy, who was in the room. Eric Cressy started off in powerlifting. Right. I volunteered at an event in Toronto in maybe just before I graduated, like 2013. And Cressy was there presenting. And I was there, I knew a guy at BioFreeze, and he's like, "Oh, come out and do this CrossFit thing. We need like a clinician." I'm like, "I haven't graduated yet." He goes, "I don't care." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And so I went out and did that, and I had that full circle moment. But Cressy, powerlifter, competed, right? Like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure K-Star was a competitive athlete in multiple disciplines prior to the CrossFit thing.
He was like a really high level, like kayaker or some shit.
That's what
Like
it is. Yeah.
yeah.
And then, I mean, there's a ton of people that I think are successful, a ton of people who are successful that have a competition background. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, and this is more directly related to the tangible aspects of business, is you have to become a generalist, right? Like you may have a specialty that you want to over time. Like the way I look at this is like, and I use this analogy for a lot of different things, but I think about like the Bohr diagram again, and I think about like, okay, the graphical representation of an atom, and it's like it has a nucleus, and then you have like your valence rings. So there's 2 electrons in the first valence and 8 electrons on the subsequent valences. So it's like hydrogen has 1, and helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, so on and so forth. The hydrogen bomb is a nuclear weapon, right? So the amount of energy that gets released where you split the atom is Hiroshima, it's 3 Mile Island, it's Springfield in the Simpsons. Like it's nuclear. It's very, very powerful. When you look at you as a business owner, when you first start, you have to be cognizant of many valences, many rings, and many activities. So it's like you have the core, whatever your primary business is, right? So us, it was sort of training, first off, like programming, and then education. That's like still something that's very close to you and I, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the things we're good at. It's like, if like our newsletters, so our weekly newsletters we send out, these are like high production videos that you and I do together. And there's specialty. If you haven't subscribed to the email list, go to www.pre-script.com and get on the newsletter list. It's not just like some bullet, like it's a lot of thought goes into it. A lot of expertise goes into it. And that's where our time is best spent, because you and I collaboratively working on these video newsletters is the thing that really only you and I can do. That's because that's the nucleus of our business. But when we first started, and to think of like all of the facets, like web and digital, tech infrastructure, even something as trivial as content curation and creation, right? Like I kind of had to learn a little bit about cameras and understand what f-stop and ISO, and just so like I know that I'm not getting hosed if and when I hire someone, right? Or
Right.
like different lenses and portrait versus uh, whatever the fuck I go, Sigma glass and all this shit. And it's like, okay, I know a little bit about that now. And then you went off, I mean, legal, finance, accounting. You became basically a paralegal in 2020, as far as I'm concerned, with all that shit you had to deal with.
Uh,
So, but it's like, and that's something that, there is at a certain point, this trope in business when people look at people like Musk and like, Bezos or whatever, and it's like, you're not Apple and you're not Amazon. And I think that's worth knowing. And then I think what further to the point is the modern day business owner, almost at every scale now, is founder driven,
yeah.
right? Like there's a few monolithic companies that I think break this rule. And there's some services that are so integral that regardless of who owns it. But it used to be back in the day, like no one knew who the CEO of General Electric was, right? It's a big business that existed in a different time. It was well capitalized and was well run and provided. And I'm sure there are still businesses like this, right? There's manufacturing plants that make seatbelts for Corollas that the guy is probably a billionaire who owns it, and his name is not important to the running of the business. It's so automated. But more and more every day, the importance of a founder-led business is big. Right now, you alluded to something that I think is true. We want the company to be bigger than us, but the best way to do that is to make yourself big. Because like you can have a business that's bigger than you if no one fucking gives a shit or knows who you are, right? Like you can have a
Right.
lemonade stand that's bigger than you if you're a fucking jackass sitting on the curb. But if
Right.
you can try and elevate yourself, getting yourself out there, providing more value is essentially the bottom line, in my opinion. And then your goal becomes, I need a business bigger than me. You're
Mhm.
forcing yourself to create a real business if you kind of create yourself as someone who can provide perpetual value. So those are two things that I think are really, really important in the early stages of running a business. Is one, identify those tasks that exist at the outer valence. What's going to help you free up the most energy, right? So for us, media was a big part of it. You blew up on social media in like a week. You had 10,000 followers. Why? Because you were competing in CrossFit and you were also really fucking smart. And you put some smart stuff up, and CrossFit people like ate it up like fucking paleo bars or whatever the fuck. But it's like, okay, you were competing, you put yourself out there, but you and I, we're better at it now, definitely. You and I didn't like the content creation part.
No,
Many a
still
conversation
don't.
over the years, still
Yeah.
don't. But it's systemized.
Yeah.
Fuck if it's not system. Like, in the last, and shout out fucking Jay Marshall Media for holding it the
Yeah.
fuck down
The
at
man.
Marshall Media but it's like, we knew early that this was an outer valence task that would free up a lot of energy early. So that was, as money started coming in, I think we bought Chipotle and donuts once. And then our next business expense was, we need someone for media, right? So
Yeah.
we would hire people local in the Bay Area. Then when we met Jay Marsh, it was kind of a wrap. Jay Marsh has been with us now. I don't know what, 5 years, 4 years,
Probably around
2020,
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then now as more resources come in, or you generate more resources, you can gain more energy back by knocking off these tasks or these activities or these business practices that you need to uphold, and delegating them, right? Until you get to sort of that core thing that you're good at, which by and large, we're kind of at now. There are things operationally that we do, that you do, that Matt does, that aren't necessarily, like, we still have work to do, but the three of us are working as close to the nucleus of our skill set as possible right now. And it's always been the goal to free that up.
Yeah.
Right. When we brought on business partners in 2018, web and all of that stuff, any sort of tech infrastructure, it was me and you running it. Of course it was dog shit.
It's
We're
terrible.
idiots. Imagine us, how dumb we are now, minus 7 years of learning or 8 years of learning, right? So that's like how I like to look at it. So look at the tasks that you do every day as a business owner. And again, this is like feeding forward into the future of your business. Like, no in business can oftentimes mean just not right now, right? I think that's an important ethos. Like,
Mhm.
can I hire someone to do bookkeeping? Can I hire someone to do this? Like, well, which one would free up the most amount of time? Right?
Mhm.
Or which one do you like the least that would affect the sustainability of your business? Oh, it's media. Oh, it's bookkeeping. Oh, it's legal. It's someone to draw up your T's and C's. Like, okay, the first time you can afford to get someone to do that for you, do it. And then it frees up that energy to do the things that you're going to do.